In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah saying, Stand in the gate of the Lord's house and proclaim there this word, and say, Hear the word of the Lord, all you of Judah who enter in at these gates to worship the Lord. The setting was a humble village in Galilee. Expectation hung in the air, for a wedding was at hand in Cana. Life in this small village spun around simple joys and the burdens each family shared. Among the eagerly awaiting crowd stood Miriam, a young woman with dreams blossoming like the jasmine flowers nearby, yet her heart bore the weight of anxious whispers that hinted at a drought threatening their celebration. Miriam was newly betrothed to Joseph, a skilled carpenter of honest hands and humble heart. With vibrant banners adorning the courtyard and tables clothed in olive branches, the village buzzed with laughter and goodwill. But deep within, Miriam fretted over the dire tales she had heard. What if there was no wine to share with the guests? Tradition demanded their hearts should overflow with joy, and the thought of disappointment weighed heavily upon her. As musicians tuned their instruments and friends gathered, Miriam's excitement twisted with worry. She sought her betrothed, but Joseph, steadfast and resolute, whispered, We will find a way, trust in Providence. But the wine, she whispered, worry painting her brow. He smiled gently, a beacon of calm, yet the clouds of uncertainty hung around her heart. Just as hope began to wane, a figure approached Jesus of Nazareth, the itinerant preacher whose words carried a depth that stirred souls. He was welcomed among them as a friend of Joseph, and as Miriam beheld this man, she felt an unusual stirring in her spirit, an inkling that perhaps he was the answer to her silent prayers. With courage blossomed by humility, she approached him, her voice a blend of tremor and resolve. They have no wine. Her words carried an immense weight. The crux of celebration and community hung on them. Jesus looked at her, compassion resting in his gaze. Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come. Confusion cascaded through her, but she chose faith over doubt. Turning to the servants, she urged, Do whatever he tells you. Several exchanged glances, caught between hesitation and eagerness. Jesus commanded them to fill 6 stone jars with water, each able to hold 20 to 30 gallons. The servants dutifully obeyed, stirred by Miriam's unwavering faith even when doubt flickered like a candle flame. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the first taste of water turned into fine wine. The head steward marveled, proclaiming, You have kept the good wine until now. Laughter erupted, joy pulsating through every heart present, and a fragile peace washed over Miriam as her concerns unraveled before the miracle. This moment was beyond celebration. It unveiled an abundance that mirrored the divine character of God, generous, intentional, and full of surprises. Yet, as wonder spread like wildfire, Miriam gazed at the man who initiated this change, questions swirling in her heart about the depths of his purpose. This was but a glimpse into a greater mystery yet to unfold, a foreshadowing of God's plan that began to stir with a promise resonating for generations to come. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select All Notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As twilight fell, the celestial tapestry came alive, nature confirming the divine transformation seen at the wedding feast. Miriam pondered the mystery. Recognizing that this was not only the first miracle performed by Jesus but a profound revelation of the nature of faith, illustrating that beyond every trial, abundant grace awaited, ready to be uncovered in God's perfect timing. How many other wonders lay just around the corner? As the night deepened, the jubilant sounds of music and laughter carried through the cool air, mingling with the first stars twinkling in the vastness above. Miriam's heart still danced in the aftermath of the miracle, her joy entwined with bewilderment. What power had this man, Jesus? And how could her life be forever changed by a simple act of faith? Among the roused guests, the whispers of praise grew. Truly, this is a wondrous thing, spoke a neighbor, his voice filled with amazement. To have fine wine when all seemed lost is a gift from the heavens. The praises echoed, but deep within Miriam's heart, a longing stirred, a desire to know more of this man who had transformed water into wine. With the hour growing late, she watched as Jesus chatted amiably with the other villagers. Her heart urged her closer, yet the weight of her unworthiness loomed heavy. Who am I, she thought, to seek the one who has revealed such glory? But his gaze caught hers, and an understanding passed between them. He knew her heart. As if magnetized, she stepped forward, compelled by divine curiosity. The crowd parted comfortably for her, recognizing the closeness between Joseph, her fiancé, and the revered teacher. "Rabbi," she breathed, her voice softer than the evening breeze. "Is there more? More than this moment of joy?" Jesus regarded her with a knowing smile, one that spoke both of affection and purpose. "There is always more, Miriam," he replied, and the warmth of his words settled like a shawl over her, enveloping her fears in an embrace of faith. A moment later, he turned to the other guests, raising his cup, and proclaimed, "Joy is not just found in this abundant wine, it is but a shadow of what is to come." The laughter returned, yet Miriam felt a stirring in her spirit, a hint of the divine revelation yet to unfold. What did he mean by what is to come? The night continued on, but as guests gathered for dances and feasting, Miriam found herself drifting deeper into contemplation. She marveled at how, in an instant, ordinary elements could bear the extraordinary. If God could transform water into wine, what other transformations could he herald? Her thoughts raced to the prophecies she had grown up hearing, the murmurs of the Messiah who would come to redeem his people. Would Jesus be that very one? The echo of scriptures whispered at the edges of her consciousness. Isaiah had foretold of the joy that would come to those who were mourning, Isaiah 61 verse 3. Could this moment be a part of his grand promise? She pondered. As dawn began to break on the horizon, Miriam stood at the edge of the celebration, feeling the pull of destiny. Suddenly she understood that her role and that of Jesus would stretch far beyond this wedding feast. Divine purpose twinkled like the stars that faded into the dawn. A mission awaited them with each miracle, each teaching, a stepping stone toward an unfolding plan crafted by the Creator. "Take heart," Jesus had said moments before, "for the path set before you is one of faith, and through you, others will believe." Even as her heart trembled at the weight of it all, a glimmer of hope anchored her faith, for she sensed that the marvel of this night was only the beginning. This miracle echoed deeper promises of love, grace, and redemption, all interwoven in God's divine tapestry. What lay ahead for Miriam, Joseph, and their village? With a heart poised for wonder, she would soon discover that the miraculous transformations born that night were merely the first whispers of what God was preparing to reveal, setting the stage for a momentous journey toward fulfillment. The time was coming when the true nature of joy would be unveiled in ways she could barely imagine. As the first light of dawn spilled over the horizon, casting golden rays upon the remnants of the night's festivities, the air was thick with the scent of sweetened bread and the echoes of laughter slowly fading into memory. Each guest, now weary yet satisfied, began to bid farewell, but Miriam remained, her heart entranced by the recent events. "Rabbi," she whispered again, feeling emboldened by the moments they had shared. "What is this path you speak of? How do we journey forward in faith?" Jesus turned his attention to her once more, his expression suffused with a gentle wisdom. The journey is often fraught with trials, yet it is in those very trials that the heart of man is tested and refined. As the sun rose higher, the villagers began to gather their belongings, but Miriam could not shake the sense that this communion with Jesus was but a precursor to something greater. She recalled the words of the prophet Jeremiah, who had proclaimed, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Jeremiah 29 verse 11. What future lay hidden in his promises? In that moment, as uncertainty flickered in the corners of her heart, she caught a glimpse of Joseph, his brow furrowed with concern. He approached Jesus, seeking counsel about the implications of the miraculous event. The others fell silent, eager to catch a word of wisdom. "Rabbi," Joseph began, we have seen your power and tasted your goodness. Yet, we are but simple folk. How do we share this joy with those who do not believe? Jesus' voice rang clear and strong. By living as lights in this world, showing mercy and love, as the Father shows to you. Your actions shall speak louder than words, for faith is a journey, not merely a moment. Miriam's spirit lifted as she absorbed his teachings, understanding now that she was a vessel for his message, a torchbearer of the divine love meant to illuminate even the darkest corners of her village. Her zeal for knowledge grew, understanding now that this was not merely about the wine transformed but about the hearts waiting to be filled. At that moment, something remarkable occurred. The sunlight, filtering through the trees, created patterns on the ground, almost as if mapping out a path before her. A myriad of colors danced across the dirt, a reminder that each moment is to be lived with intention, for it could lead to a profound revelation. "Rabbi," she called out once more, prompted by an urgency within. "What shall we do when the storms come? How do we endure when our faith is tested?" Jesus met her gaze, his eyes shining with truth. Even in the storm, faith can still walk upon the water. Recall the winds that howled at the sea and the hand of God that calmed them. Every tempest serves a purpose, and through them, you shall know the depths of my grace. Amidst his words, a spark ignited within her, as she felt a profound sense of connection to the divine. There was more at play than she could fully comprehend, truths hidden and layers of purpose waiting to be unraveled. As the crowd began to disperse, she knew that this was only the beginning of a much larger tapestry being woven. The miracle of wine was but a poignant whisper of the greater truths and divine encounters they were destined to experience. For she sensed that God's sovereign plan was unfolding, rich with the promise of redemption through Christ. All that she had witnessed pointed to a greater reality, one that would challenge and empower those willing to embrace faith. What other miracles awaited? What trials would test their mettle? As Miriam lingered in the shadow of his presence, she felt a divine urgency. She must ready herself for what was to come, for she was a part of a story woven by the Creator's hand, a flicker of hope in a world longing for light. What awaited her and her people still lay in the uncharted territories of his promise, unveiling the true nature of joy, love, and redemption that could shatter all boundaries. The echoes of the hour lingered, whispering of God's great design. Truly, the best was yet to come. As the last of the villagers drifted towards their homes, Miriam remained by the well, her heart still echoing with Jesus' words. The sun climbed higher, bathing the landscape in warmth and clarity, but a cloud of uncertainty hung above her spirit. How could she possibly carry forth this message into the world? In her contemplation, she noticed a group approaching. Some of her fellow villagers were returning from the fields, weary yet filled with a quiet reverence. Among them was Nathan, a man known for his skeptical heart and sharp tongue. Miriam felt a pang of apprehension. Would they understand the joy that had been poured into her, or would they mock what they could not comprehend? "Good day, Miriam," Nathan called, his tone light yet probing. "We have heard whispers of miracles this morning. Is it true what they say? Did the rabbi transform water into wine?" Miriam straightened, her heart racing. "Yes, Nathan, it is true. The rabbi performed a miracle, but it is more than that. He filled our hearts with hope." A murmur rippled through the others. Some exchanged curious glances, while others rolled their eyes in disbelief. "And what good is wine when our needs are so great?" Another voice chimed in. "The Romans still take our crops, and we toil for naught." Jesus had always taught with patience and understanding, yet Miriam felt a stirring in her spirit, a call to infuse their mundane fears with the divine truth she had gleaned. "But consider this," she replied, her voice steady with rising conviction. "This miracle is but the beginning, a sign that he desires to fill the voids in our lives. It beckons us to trust in greater things." Nathan scoffed, shaking his head. "You speak of faith like a child speaks of dreams. What evidence do you have?" The sun was now high, igniting Miriam's resolve. "Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen," she declared, drawing upon the teachings she had absorbed. Even now, in our trials and hardships, a new path unfolds before us, one fashioned by the hand of God. Silence enveloped the group, the weight of her words hanging in the air. In that moment of stillness, they bore witness to the truth emanating from her heart. Nathan's expression softened, the skepticism flickering as he nodded slowly. Suddenly, a rustling sound cut through the tension as Jesus approached from the neighboring grove, his presence a balm on their troubled souls. "Miriam," he called out, "what have you shared?" She took a step forward, emboldened by his proximity. "I spoke of your miracle, Rabbi, and what it means for our lives." "Then tell them not only of wine transformed," he replied with a knowing smile, "but of hearts renewed, and the joy of salvation that flows like rivers of water. For even as I turn the mundane into the extraordinary, so too shall I ignite faith within the hearts of those who believe." As Jesus spoke, a spirit of warmth and unity fell upon the gathering. The villagers exchanged looks of wonder, an awakening stirring within them, as if the divine light illuminated their weary faces. In that sacred moment, Miriam realized that the fulfillment of God's promise began with openness to the unknown, a heart willing to embrace both the miraculous and the mundane. The murmurs of doubt began to fade, replaced by hopeful anticipation. Each eye sparkled with the possibility of transformation, yet, even amidst rising faith, deep within her, the question remained: what greater trials awaited them? Beneath the surface of joy lay the shadows of uncertainty. What would they face for the sake of this new belief? With hearts aflame and spirits ignited by the promise of what was to come, the villagers felt the gentle pull of destiny whispering to them. The journey ahead would not be easy, but one paved with divine purpose, as God's sovereign plan began to unveil itself in ways they could not yet fathom. What awaited them on this path of faith, amid challenges and miracles yet to unfold? Unbeknownst to them, they were stepping into a narrative that would echo through eternity, for the best was yet to be revealed. As the sun began to descend toward the horizon, casting golden hues upon the fields, the air was thick with anticipation among the villagers. The warmth of Jesus' words still lingered, intertwining with their growing sense of hope. Even Nathan, whose heart had once been enshrouded in doubt, stood with a nascent glimmer of belief dawning in his eyes. "Rabbi," Nathan ventured carefully, "if you fill our hearts with hope, what then shall we do when trials come? Where will we find strength amid our struggles against Rome?" Jesus turned to Nathan, his gaze piercing yet gentle, as if he saw deep into the soul of the man. "It is through the trials that faith is refined like silver in a furnace. For even as I have shown you the joy of my grace, so too do I empower each of you to face adversity, for in your weakness, my strength is made perfect." At his words, a soothing silence fell over them, broken only by the soft rustling of the wind in the olive branches. The villagers shifted closer, drawn into the magnetic presence of their rabbi, their hearts open to the promise of his truth. Miriam seized the moment, feeling the stirrings of courage well within her. "Listen, everyone. Let us share what we have, for the power of testimony binds our faith together. Each story of joy, each memory of hope, shall be a reminder that we are not forsaken." Encouraged by her boldness, one elder stepped forward, his voice shaking yet resilient. "I once lost all to despair, yet through the mercy of God, I found a handful of grain and was sustained. It was not mere bread, it was the very hand of Providence that fed me." Another woman, tears shimmering in her eyes, recounted the story of her son's illness and the unexpected healing she witnessed through fervent prayer. "In those dark nights, I clung to the promises of God. Each whisper of hope became a beacon in my heart." As the villagers spoke, a ripple effect of belief surged through them, lighting a fire of unity. Each testimony became a thread, weaving together a tapestry of strength, illuminating their collective struggle against the oppressive weight of Roman rule. Seeing the bond grow, Jesus nodded approvingly. "You see, my followers, when gathered in faith, your combined strength and testimonies can shake the very gates of hell. Be not afraid, for I am with you always, even until the end of the age." A murmur of agreement resonated through the crowd, yet amid their newfound hope, Miriam felt a subtle shift in the air. An undercurrent of unease flickered, for they knew the road was fraught with potential peril. The fervor of faith clashed against the shadow of the unknown, raising the question, what cost would their belief demand? As the sun dipped lower, and the fiery sky began to darken, a man broke through from the gathering. It was Simon, a fellow villager, breathless and agitated. "Rabbi!" he cried out, his voice caught between fear and excitement. "Word has spread of your miracles, and Pharisees have come to investigate. They seek to silence you." A hush fell over the villagers, the weight of Simon's words hung heavy with foreboding. Miriam grasped Jesus' hand, her pulse racing. Would they allow fear to extinguish the flame of faith ignited that day? Jesus, unfazed by the news, met their anxious gazes. "Do not let your hearts be troubled. The path we walk is marked by dangers, but remember, he who seeks to gain the world for his soul's sake shall lose it, but he who loses his life for my sake will find it." With those words, the tension within the gathering began to lift, as an understanding settled. Miriam realized the truth of his declaration. A new chapter awaited, woven with both miracles and trials. "What shall we do, Rabbi?" she asked, her voice steady yet eager for direction. "Go forth and proclaim what you have seen," Jesus instructed. "Let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." Each act of love, each word of hope sown in faith, shall bear the fruit of the kingdom. Thus, buoyed by renewed faith and the promise of their rabbi, the villagers, emboldened together, set forth. Yet with each step, an echo remained unbeknownst to them, a deeper trial loomed, one that would reveal the true depth of their faith and the unfathomable reach of God's sovereign plan. Little did they know, the dawn of an unfathomable revelation was approaching, destined to shape the course of eternity itself. As the villagers departed, a heavy stillness fell upon the olive grove, the air thick with anticipation and divine counsel. Jesus watched as they melded into the rising shadows of the evening, their hearts emboldened yet fragile. In the silence, he retreated for a moment to commune with the Father, seeking wisdom for the path ahead, for he knew that trials would soon be intertwined with their witness. Meanwhile, Simon lingered, his brow furrowed with concern. "Rabbi," he ventured timidly, "do you foresee the confrontation that lies ahead? The Pharisees will not merely seek to silence words, they are wolves who hunger for blood." Jesus turned his gaze to Simon, a gentle fire illuminating his eyes. "Fear not, for I have come to seek and save that which is lost. Remember, my friend, the servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. But take heart, I have overcome the world." His words resonated with divine authority, revealing not only his purpose but also imparting courage into Simon's troubled spirit. As twilight deepened into night, a phalanx of shadows approached from the distant hill, cloaked figures carrying the weight of their own intentions. The Pharisees, in their conquest to counteract the growing tide of faith among the people, sought to confront Jesus. They stirred anxiety within those who clung to their power and influence, blinded by their own traditions, but in this oppressive darkness, a light flickered among the villagers. Miriam, emboldened by Jesus' words, turned to the gathering. "Let us prepare ourselves, brothers and sisters. The time has come to declare the truth we have witnessed. Let not fear envelop you. We stand united, and in his name, we shall proclaim the wonders he has performed." As they collectively affirmed their resolve, the leaders of the community found strength in their unity. Nathan stepped forward, his voice firm yet filled with humility. "Let us not forget the promise he made to us. When we open our mouths in faith, he will fill them with his truth. Even the stones would cry out if we silence ourselves." With hearts aflame with purpose, they formed a procession toward the synagogue in the village, where the Pharisees awaited. The moon cast a silver light upon their path, illuminating the way for their declaration. Each step resonated with the heartbeat of hope. Upon reaching the synagogue, the atmosphere crackled with tension. The Pharisees stood regally, cloaked in arrogance, their eyes narrowing in disdain as they beheld the contingent of villagers led by Jesus. "What is this ruckus?" one of them called, scoffing at the audacity of the people. Have you come to speak in the name of this Nazarene? Do you not fear the consequences? Standing in the front, Miriam raised her voice, emboldened by the Spirit. We have seen his goodness, and our hearts are changed. He has healed the sick and comforted the weary. We cannot be silent any longer. Her declaration pierced the air, echoing with the truth that had taken root in their hearts. Jesus stepped forward, his presence commanding silence. You search the Scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, and they are they which testify of me. The weight of his words hung heavily, challenging the very foundation of their understanding. You seek to uphold the law, yet do you not see that the law only points to the love and grace of God? I have come to fulfill, not to destroy. As the word settled among the assembly, a murmur of confusion rippled through the crowd. Their hearts quaked, trapped between awe and unrest. Epic grace began to stir hope, testing the resolve of the Pharisees, yet, undisguised opposition lingered in the air, as one of the Pharisees stepped forward, his heart steeped in bitterness. You speak of grace yet disregard our customs. Who are you to challenge our traditions? Surely God would not send a mere carpenter to reveal such wonders. Unfazed, Jesus' eyes radiated compassion and truth. It is not the well who need a physician, but the sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners, to repentance. The power of his words was palpable, a dagger to the heart of pride and entitlement. In that sacred moment of truth, the hearts of many trembled. They stood at a crossroads, for the ultimate revelation of God's love hung before them, wrapped in the flesh of the one who would redefine eternity. As tensions swirled, the seemingly unwinnable battle for faith and freedom unfolded, leading toward an unforeseen climax that would echo through time. For little did they realize, the dawn of redemption was on the edge of their hearts, a divine crescendo poised to unveil the magnificent details of God's sovereign plan. As the murmurs of discontent swelled and doubt danced upon the lips of the crowd, Jesus remained resolute, his countenance radiant with divine purpose. What is your authority in this matter? One Pharisee demanded, the sneer evident in his voice. By what power do you challenge our traditions? Jesus, unyielding in his grace, replied, I ask you, was the baptism of John from heaven or from men? Answer me. This question hung heavy in the air, as the leaders conferred among themselves, their hearts caught in a snare of self-preservation. They deliberated feverishly, whispering, if we say from heaven, he will ask why we did not believe him. But if we say from men, their fear of the crowd's response, deeply apprehensive of the people who considered John a prophet, paralyzed their tongues. Finally, they turned to Jesus, their answer a hollow admission of defeat. We do not know. With that, Jesus responded, neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things. His words, firm yet wrapped in divine mercy, exposed their lack of discernment and their unwillingness to accept truth when it stood before them. An unsettling silence cloaked the assembly, disrupted suddenly by a voice rising from the back. It was a man whose blindness had been healed by Jesus, a testimony crafted through transformation. I was blind, but now I see. I know not where this man came from, but if he were not from God, he could do nothing. The crowd collectively gasped, a quivering acknowledgement of the miracle stirring deep within their hearts. Jesus had gathered not only followers but witnesses of his wondrous grace, and now this testimony became like a spark igniting the dry tinder of their faith. The Pharisees, already riddled with fury, turned their ire upon the man. You were born entirely in sin, and you presume to teach us? With that, they cast him out of the synagogue, declaring he was no longer worthy of their company. But Jesus, hearing of the man's expulsion, sought him out. When he found him, he asked, Do you believe in the Son of God? Who is he, Lord, that I may believe in him? The man inquired earnestly. Jesus answered, You have both seen him, and it is he who speaks with you. In that instant, the man's heart flooded with faith, and he responded, Lord, I believe. And he worshipped him. The sacred act of worship echoed louder than the resistance that surrounded them, a fervent testament to the transformative power of Jesus' love. Meanwhile, the Pharisees, reeling from their loss of authority, witnessed this exchange in mounting disbelief. Are we blind too? They challenged him. Their question struck with a rooted fear, for the implication of their blindness carried eternal consequence. To them, Jesus replied, if you were blind, you would have no guilt, but now that you say, we see, your guilt remains. The truth of his words pierced their hearts like a lightning bolt of conviction, illuminating the shadows of hypocrisy that cloaked them. As evening descended further into darkness, they retreated, unsure of how to suppress the uprising of faith burgeoning among the people. Yet the villagers were invigorated. This miracle had solidified their belief in the Messiah, their hearts intertwined with the hope of redemption. In the quiet corners of the olive grove, Jesus spoke to his disciples, the time is coming, and now is, when true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for the Father seeks such to worship him. With these words, a tidal wave of revelation washed over them, stirring expectations of divine fulfillment and underscoring the importance of integrity in faith. Little did they know, events were already in motion to fulfill the ancient prophecies, and a divine confrontation awaited that would shake the very foundations of their understanding, for it was the hour of revelations, where the hearts of men would be laid bare, and the perfect plan of the Father would emerge not merely for Israel, but for all the nations, a limitless promise of grace unfolding like the petals of a blooming flower, heralding the depth of God's sovereign love. As dawn spilled light over the hills, Jesus gathered with his disciples, their hearts still rejoicing in the miracle that had transpired. The air was thick with anticipation, as they sensed the gravity of what lay ahead. Jesus, observing the weight of both hope and fear in their faces, began to speak again. Do you understand the parable of the vineyard? He asked, drawing them into deeper reflection. A man planted a vineyard and set a hedge around it, dug a place for the winepress, and built a tower. He leased it to vinedressers and went into a far country. His disciples listened intently, recognizing that his words carried layers of meaning meant for their hearts. Now when the season drew near for the harvest, he sent his servants to the vinedressers, that they might receive its fruit. And the vinedressers took his servants, beat one, killed another, and stoned another. Jesus paused, allowing the gravity of his story to sink in. An unsettling silence wrapped around them, as thoughts of rejection festered within the Jewish leaders, who had turned their backs on God's prophets. Again he sent other servants, more than the first, and they did likewise to them, he continued, his voice unwavering. Then last of all he sent his son to them, saying, they will respect my son. But when the vinedressers saw the son, they said among themselves, this is the heir. Come, let us kill him and seize his inheritance. Sorrow filled the eyes of the disciples as they understood the pathway of rejection that awaited Jesus, for they recognized that he was the Son sent to redeem. What will happen to those vinedressers? They asked, desperation lacing their words. Jesus, with piercing eyes, proclaimed, he will destroy those wicked men miserably and lease his vineyard to others who will render to him the fruits in their seasons. His words resonated with a prophetic authority, echoing the fate that awaited those who failed to recognize their place in God's unfolding narrative. The religious leaders, listening from a distance, were incensed. They understood that he spoke of them, for they too had silenced the voices of the prophets and rejected God's grace. As they plotted their next move, Jesus turned to his disciples and spoke of the cornerstone, the very stone that would be rejected yet become the chief cornerstone. Have you never read in the scriptures, the stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone? This was the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. His words dripped with both warning and hope, revealing the paradox of his mission, and the crowd pressed closer, yearning for the words that could quench their thirst for divine truth. They could feel the weight of his message that those who come humbly and with open hearts will surely be embraced by the Father. Simultaneously, the Pharisees recoiled in their anger, plotting not just to silence him, but to extinguish the light he brought. Yet in this divine confrontation, a greater plan unfolded. As the day stretched towards its climax, while hearts wrestled with conviction and fear, Jesus directed their gaze to the coming days. For the kingdom of God will be taken from you and given to a nation bearing the fruits of it. The profound mystery of grace began to spill over, hinting at a divine reconciliation much broader than Israel alone. What was unknown to them, he whispered, is that this was not the end but a beginning, a promise greater than they had ever envisioned, woven into the very fabric of creation. The whispers of the crowd grew louder, and hearts began to stir with anticipation. For a time was fast approaching when the long-awaited unfolding of God's sovereign plan would reveal not only judgment but the very miracle of redemption, for the nations would see and believe. It was in these expressions of faith, the tapestry of lives turned to Him, that God's glory would indeed be made manifest, mirroring His nature of abundant love and divine purpose that transcended all understanding, crafting a new era in which all could be drawn near. And so Jesus spoke, His voice resonating in the hearts of all who would listen. Behold, I am making all things new. As the sun reached its zenith, casting golden rays upon the earth, the crowds gathered even closer around Jesus, each heart alive with a yearning for His teachings. With divine authority, He turned His gaze towards them, a mighty calm enveloping the assembly. Listen closely, He said, His voice clear amidst the murmuring crowd. A certain king prepared a great supper and invited many. In the time of the feast, he sent his servant to say to those who were invited, Come, for all things are now ready. But they all with one accord began to make excuses. The murmurs grew quieter, intrigue taking hold as the imagery unfolded in their minds. The first said to him, I have bought a piece of ground, and I must go and see it. I ask you to have me excused. Another said, I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I am going to test them. I ask you to have me excused. And still another said, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come. His word struck a chord, for the hearts of many were ensnared by earthly affairs, unaware of the eternal invitation waiting before them. So that servant came and reported these things to his master. Then the master of the house, being angry, said to his servant, Go out quickly into the streets and lanes of the city, and bring in here the poor and the maimed and the lame and the blind. Hope kindled within the people as they envisioned the inclusiveness of God's kingdom, a recognition that even the least of these were cherished in His eyes. And the servant said, Master, it is done as you commanded, and still there is room. Then the master said to the servant, Go out into the highways and hedges, and compel them to come in, that my house may be filled. For I say to you that none of those men who were invited shall taste my supper. The disciples felt the weight of His words, understanding that His mission would reach beyond their expectations, advancing into the hearts of all nations. In this kingdom, no one would be turned away from the feast of grace. Ask yourselves, Jesus continued, His eyes scanning the faces before Him, who among you would reject such a feast? It is given freely, yet many will take their comforts over the gift of life. As He spoke, His heart grieved for the ones who would miss out. The Pharisees, their hearts hardened, shifted uncomfortably, despising the thought that their complacency might lead to such eternal loss. The atmosphere became charged with divine urgency as Jesus challenged the rooted beliefs surrounding the kingdom. For I tell you, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. His voice held both warning and promise, beckoning at the walls of tradition that separated God's people from the fullness of His love. In the tension, an elder from the crowd, struck by the gravity of Jesus' message, murmured, Who then can be saved? The question hung palpably in the air like incense rising to heaven. Jesus turned to him, the gentleness of His gaze commanding both reverence and understanding. With men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. The crowd fell silent, hearts stirring as they pondered the depths of divine possibility that awaited them. And so Jesus continued to teach, weaving tales and truths, each line a thread in the magnificent tapestry of His sovereign plan that salvation would burst forth not just in Israel but to the ends of the earth. In the shadow of His revelation, the atmosphere shifted, love interwoven with urgency. The promise lingered, a magnetic pull drawing hearts towards divine destiny. What you perceive as lost, He declared, will be found. What you consider broken, I shall restore. As the day turned to dusk, He spoke once more, the words echoing with profound mystery, revealing layers of hope yet unseen. A time will come when the last of the lost will be brought home, and my kingdom shall cover the earth as the waters cover the sea. The plea resonated. For the kingdom of heaven drew near, bridging the gap, beckoning the weary, the broken, and the unworthy to the banquet table of grace, where every soul could find true belonging. As the sun dipped low, casting golden hues upon the gathered crowd, Jesus continued with a tranquil authority, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Pray, therefore, to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." Each villager could feel the weight of this commission, an echo resounding through generations, calling them into action. Miriam, emboldened by every word he spoke, felt the stirrings of purpose overwhelming her heart. "Rabbi," she called out with a renewed spirit, "we shall share the joy of your message. If we are called to labor, let our hands be the extension of your love." Her declaration rang through the air, igniting heart fires among those present. The followers nodded, hope woven into their dreams as they envisioned the multitude who needed this saving grace. They understood now, life would not solely dwell within their village but would spill forth as a river of hope, reaching every broken and lost soul. Jesus surveyed the faces of his followers, radiant with faith, and he affirmed, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden." As night gracefully enfolded the village, miracles were not merely remembered, but testimonies were birthed among the villagers. They began sharing their stories of redemption and healing, hearts claiming the promises Jesus had spoken. "I was weak, yet through his strength, I stand firm," one elder proclaimed. Others joined, the stories weaving together a tapestry of God's faithfulness. Yet, in the distance, shadows loomed, for the Pharisees seethed with indignation and doubt. Knowing their voices had been challenged, they plotted to undermine Jesus' ministry, yet he remained steadfast. "Fear not, for I am with you," he reassured his disciples, sensing their trepidation. The villagers, now emboldened by faith, resolved to share the joy and wisdom woven into their hearts. "Let us go forth," Miriam urged, her voice resonating with conviction. "Let our feet carry forth the good news, through our actions, let love manifest in the world." And so, under the authority of their teacher, they dispersed, created as vessels of hope and heralds of truth, determined to fulfill the purpose ignited that day. Days turned into weeks, the gospel woven into the very fabric of their lives. Yet challenges arose, as struggles against doubt and fear threatened their newfound strength. In those moments, however, the recollection of Jesus' miracles, especially that glorious wedding feast, united their spirits, reminding them of the power of faith married to action. "We are transformed," they echoed with fervor. "We shall not waver in the face of adversity, for we labor not for ourselves, but for the harvest of souls." In the distance, Jesus continued to teach, heal and challenge societal norms, steadily preparing his chosen ones for the climax of his mission, the cross and the resurrection. As Miriam witnessed his teachings, she felt the weight of destiny binding them to God's sovereign plan, knowing they were part of a larger narrative. "Rabbi," she sought out Jesus one evening, her eyes dancing with fervor, "your words are like a balm, yet they promise something even greater to come. How do we remain steadfast when trials may seem insurmountable?" He smiled knowingly, extending a hand to her. "Just as the bread is broken and multiplied among the hungry, so too shall your faith be tested and expanded. Remember that my strength sustains you, and in the trials, hope blossoms." As dawn approached once more on the horizon, Miriam experienced a profound revelation. The journey they embarked upon would not only transform their village but also ripple out, touching all nations. The day of fulfillment loomed, for everything she had witnessed pointed to the greater joy still to come. The journey towards the cross lay ahead, yet she discovered an unwavering anchor within. "We are not alone in this," she whispered with gratitude. "The Creator walks with us." Moreover, she understood the true nature of faith. It demanded more than mere acceptance, it required action, belief manifested in love. Time passed, weaving hope through every life they encountered. Miriam and her village became vessels of heavenly truth, compassionate disciples illuminating the world around them. As they proclaimed liberation and joy, Jesus' words settled deep within them, "Behold, I am making all things new." In the fullness of time, the shadows that lingered gave way to a dawning light, an eternal promise of salvation unfurling before them. The stage was set, the cross awaited, and with hearts united, the villagers understood that their humble beginnings were bound to echo across eternity. As this sacred story moves toward its glorious crescendo, let us remember to immerse ourselves in the richness of faith through action. In witnessing the transformative power of Christ, we too are called to be light-bearers, sharing His love and grace, igniting hope in the hearts of others. As you reflect on this powerful story, don't hesitate to embark on a journey with us. Subscribe immediately to ensure you don't miss the next powerful biblical stories that will empower and uplift your spirit. Leave a like now, and help spread God's word through this sacred algorithm. Your reflections matter. Comment below with how this biblical story has impacted your faith journey. Share this powerful testimony instantly with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth, and know that you are part of a collective mission to embrace love and hope across the world. Don't wait even one more second. Act boldly and be the vessel God has called you to be.